What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from Wildest from Zero, back with another retro Yu-Gi-Oh video, back with another Airblade format video. Now, this will likely be my last video showing off Airblade gameplay proper. Maybe at some point I'll review this in the future, but I do think that there isn't really much to talk about in this format. The dominant deck is just Airblade. That's a tier 0 format, basically. But given that the dominant deck is Airblade, some commenters basically wanted me to test out whether a deck tailor-made to beat Airblade would actually be able to compete in this format. And it's a good question. Airblade is a very powerful deck, but there are some things that can give it a lot of trouble. For instance, it's a very spell-focused deck. So you're playing things like Anti-Spell Fragrance in the main deck, and you're able to flip this up turn 1, basically. They can't really do much their first turn. Now, they do have ways to overcome that, over the course of the game, but if you're playing a bunch of other things that give Airblade a bit of trouble, then it can be a bit difficult for them to actually be able to beat you. So, this is my take on anti-meta for the Airblade format. I think this deck is pretty good at stopping a couple different things that Airblade likes to do. So, firstly, Anti-Spell Fragrance ×3. This is great at shutting off the spells. But, if we don't have any monsters to actually get in and deal damage to them while they can't activate their spells, then it doesn't really do much. So we do have a pretty good monster lineup. We've got Triple Cider to get pretty aggressive. This beats over their Stratoses and things like that. We've got Triple Kaiku. This prevents Phoenix Blade from being able to banish Warriors from Grave and add back to hand. It also prevents Mally from going off, so that's very good as well. We've got Triple King Tiger Wangu to stop Mallies as well. They can still banish those Mallies, but at least we're cutting off them from having a free monster to monster get away. In addition, this stops things like Diamond Dude from coming down, so that's very nice as well. We got Triple Mobius. This pairs well with our Sidras, and if we're able to just establish a monster on board, we can bring out Mobius Pop, their spells that they've set under Anti-Spell, so that's pretty good for us here. We got Breaker to also deal with their spells that they set under Anti-Spell. We got Triple Decoy to try and draw into our Anti-Spells or other things that stop Airblade, and I'll get to those in a second. But I do think that Decoy, while it is slow, is very important in this deck to draw deeper into its floodgates, and we've got a Sangan to search out our Decoy. Maybe the Sangan isn't necessary. I think it's still fine to have that searcher there, but you could arguably cut this card for something a bit better. For the spells, we don't really play much because we're playing triple anti-spell. But we got Book of Moon here. We got Comfy to rip apart their hand. We got Grace Charity to dig deeper into our deck. We got Heavy to deal with their back row, especially if we've set up anti-spell. If we set up anti-spell, set Heavy, and then we blow away their entire board, then that can be pretty good. We got MST to stop their stuff. I mean, I don't know what MST would really hit here besides like Premature Burial or Call the Haunted, which most decks don't play Call the Haunted. They do play Premature Burial, but MST I think is still fine. It deals with their back row under anti-spell, which is nice as well. But we've also got a Scapegoat to act as sort of a battle stopper, too. We've got triple anti-spell, as I mentioned. We get Call the Haunted to bring back our monster and get more aggressive. We've got a Mirror Force to deal with their aggressive pressure. We've got Ring of Destruction to pop their monsters. We got triple Sakuretsu Armor to deal with their Stratos hitting in. Of course, things like Sakuretsu and Mirror Force can be popped by Stratos if they're able to bring out multiple. But if they're able to bring out multiple Stratos, then we've already kind of failed as a deck, and they're probably going to hit the anti-spells if they can. So I think it's fine playing these to just, lock down their plays when they don't actually have the nuts to do a ton of stuff. We got Triple Solemn to stop their Stratos summons. That may sound really weird because it's just stopping a normal summon, but trust me, you really do want to stop those Stratos summons. It really does shut down a lot of what the deck tries to do. And we got Triple Threatening Roar to stop their big aggressive pushes. We've also got a Torrential Tribute here to blow up their board. For the side deck, we kind of have a side to deal with other decks, potentially. We got Triple Widespread here in case we're up against a deck that is playing things like Cyber Phoenix or stuff like that can't be targeted by things like Saku. We got Triple Dust Shoot if we know we're going first. This can be good to bring in. Although against Airblade, it's not really that good because they do so much searching of things like Stratos and stuff that it's probably best to just not play this against Airblade. We've got Triple Decree to shut off trap-based decks in case we're up against those. We got Double Dust Tornado to deal with back row heavy decks. We got Double True Nade to deal with those as well. We got a Reaper to rip cards out of our opponent's hand. We got a Knock to deal with flip-focused decks. Fusion deck we're never really going into, but it's just here to have. And that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. There's some other things that you could potentially play as well as an anti-meta tech. You potentially play Mind Crush. I saw some people theorizing about that as well. Because they go Stratos, search out something, you can Mind Crush it. Or if they search Stratos, you can just Mind Crush the Stratos before it actually hits the field. So that's something you could play as well if you want to. Maybe instead of the Decrees, having Mind Crush in here in the side could be good. But I'm happy with the deck, ultimately, how it looks here. And let's dive into some games to see how this deck actually performs. We got a game against Ragged, a frequent guest on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. And I only have this one game between this deck and Airblade. But I feel like this one game really does capture a lot of both the benefits and the struggles that this deck faces in this format. We've got a pretty good opening hand. We can go for Graceful because we're trying to dig into Anti-Spell. We do dig into the Anti-Spell, so that's pretty good. We will pitch a Heavy and a Pre-Mat here because we're going to get Anti-Spell online. And I've got Breaker to deal with their back row along with the Sidra here, so I don't really feel like I need the Heavy. So I'm just going to set 4 and pass back to them. Don't need to turn on a Sidra if they're playing it. I don't think they are playing Sidra. But either way, if they can clear our Breaker in some way, I'd rather not have it on field. So I'd rather leave things like this. And standby, we're just going to use that anti-spell, prevent them from activating spells. They're going to set 3, set 4, pass back to us. I feel pretty good about that. We draw into a ring, so I'm feeling even better. We bring out a breaker here, and we will attack in for 19. I don't think they've got any battle traps back there. And we are just going to pop one of their cards. We're going to hit a lightning vortex. That's pretty good. We set a ring, pass back to them. They are going to go for a graceful charity. That's pretty good. Unfortunately, we did not hit that with the breaker. And they're going to pitch 2. They're going to pitch a dasher and a dim fuse. They can't use the dim fuse this turn. Dasher is good to get in grave. They're going to go for a Rhoda here, searching out a Stratos and potentially, searching out something else. We will indeed just solve that because, again, we do not want them getting a search here. We accidentally misclick and hit the Saku instead. But we will do this Solemn here and pay half and stop that Stratos from searching anything else. They will set 1 card, pass back to us. We draw a Mobius, so we're just going to tribute over that break, pop both their back row with that Mobius, and then attack in for 2,400. I'm feeling really, really good in this circumstance. I feel like there isn't much that can really get us out of the game here. They're just going to set 3, pass back to us, and we're going to draw a TT here. I'm just going to attack in directly for 24, and they've got Scapegoats that will stop the 2,400 from going through, unfortunately. I still feel like we're in a fine spot. We set the TT because, we do have a lot of traps back here, but I don't think they have heavy, given how they set last turn. And I feel like TT is just good to have in case they do manage to set up some crazy Stratos plays or something. They're going to go for a gate here, and we're going to think about this, but we will just let that go through. We don't actually have a way to stop this, so, nothing we can really do about that. They get out a DMOC, which is kind of rough for us, and we do think about whether we want to TT this or not. I ultimately decide not to TT because I feel like we can just use Ring or Saku on the DMOC there instead. They do go for a heavy, so that's kind of rough for us. We will Ring the DMOC there, dealing 2,800 to both players, and now they can't use Dim Fuse even if they've got it, so that's pretty good for us. We do lose a lot of good cards there, though. They will go Graceful, draw 3, pitch 2. And then they'll go for a pre-mat here, bringing back a dasher. So now they are able to tribute one of those tokens and attack over our Mobius. That's a bit awkward for us. We do drop down 700. We could have booked the Mobius if we wanted to. I didn't really think it was necessary because then if they've got a Stratos off the top, they can hit over the Mobius. So I feel fine doing this. They're down 100 life points, so I feel like we're in a really good spot. And they're going to switch that dasher to defense. Pass back to us. We draw a Saku, so we've still got defense for this. We're going to bring out a Sidra here and attack in over that dasher. Deal with that, and then we'll set a Saku here, pass back to them. They're going to think about this, and they're going to go for a Cardi, trying to dig into something good. They've got a Jinzo in hand. I feel like they probably didn't have the Jinzo last round. They might have tributed over the Dasher for the Jinzo. But it looks like they're just going to pass back to us. We draw a T-Roar here. We'll attack in to that token there. Clear that, and then next turn we've got a potential lethal shot. We'll set a Threatening Roar because Heavy is gone. And they're going to go for Phoenix Blade here, banish 2, add that Phoenix Blade back to hand. And they're going to bring out a Stratos, search out another Stratos here. And then they're going to equip that Stratos with double Phoenix Blade. They're able to use that to attack into our Cyber Dragon here. We've got a Saku for that, so that'll deal with that. And then they'll just pass back to us. We're just going to attack in with this Sidra here, but they do have a Ring, which, that does explain why they didn't commit the Jinzo to field earlier if they had it, because Ring is a good safety option for them, and that does actually cause us to draw here because we are very low ourselves on life points. So that was a wild game. We did manage to get Anti-Spell and Solemn up early. We still managed to actually go to a draw, so that does show the power of Airblade here. Even if you've got the outs to it, it can be very, very strong. But we're going to be going first here. We win the RPS there. We've not changed anything because our deck is teched out to beat Airblade itself. They might have added things on the side, though. That's a bit awkward for us. We go for a Graceful here, draw 3, pitch 2, and we're going to pitch a Heavy and an Anti-Spell. We got this Anti-Spell here. And we got Mobius in hand, so we don't really need to set Anti-Spell Heavy, although we could have done that if we wanted to, but I feel like the Mobius should be good enough. So we are going to pass back to them. They are going to, or we're going to flip the Anti-Spell and standby just to prevent them from using spells. They're going to set 1, go for a Diamond Dude here, and mill a Rhoda. And Diamond Dude is one of the other ways that this deck can get around Anti-Spell. If they mill a spell off Diamond Dude, they can still use it on the following turn. So that is a bit awkward for us. But But we draw into a Kaiku, which is pretty good. We also draw into Breaker, so we're actually able to use the Breaker, pop that back row in case they decided into Battle Tricked, but they decided into a Decree. Very happy to see a Decree gone there. And we're just going to attack into the Diamond Dude, pass back to them. Now, they do still get a search off that Rhoda there, so they're able to search out this Stratos, and we don't have a way to stop the Stratos here. So they are able to summon out Stratos and get a search of a Mali here. So that's potentially setting up a D-draw on the following turn if they've got that. But they will attack in to our Breaker here. They're going to set 1, set 2, set 3, pass back to us. We are going to call in the end phase here, bring back the Breaker, play around a Decree play here, and then we can go for Mobius in the following turn. We'll tribute out that Mobius, pop 2 of their back row, and hit a D-draw and a Phoenix Blade. Phoenix Blade is unfortunate to hit, but D-draw is very good to hit for us. We can attack in to that Stratos there, hitting over for 6. The downside to this is that, like, if they've got a Dimension Fusion set here, then we kind of get owned, because what they do is they banish the Stratos and the Diamond Dude for a Divine Sword, and then they Dim Fuse back the Stratos and the Diamond Dude, pop the Anti-Spell, then they go off. But we do have Scapegoat to stop any of their major plays. We also have a Ring here to do things as well. So this should be fine. They go for a Reasoning here. And ultimately, we decided to call 8 because I'm thinking, like, what are the 2 things that really hurt us here? 6 or 8? And if they get 6, if they bring out a Jinzo, right? Then they've got Jinzo, so they shut off our anti-spell, do a bunch of spell plays, etc. But they might not actually have a way to deal with Mobius because Jinzo can just crash with Mobius. Whereas if they've got an 8, they bring out a Democ, and they can actually hit over Mobius. Now, we do have this Ring of Destruction here, so we are able to pop the Democ that way. So maybe it would just be better to let them get the 8 out because we do have the ring, as I mentioned. But I do just go for 8 because I'm like, I don't want them to do crazy Democ plays here. But I think 6 probably would have been the better choice. Either way, they don't hit a Jinzo or a Democ, but they do hit a Mobius here. So I'm not expecting Mobius. But I guess they brought that in to deal with Anti-Spell. They're going to tribute that Mobius for a Jinzo here. Now they're able to get off of the races, activating a D-draw, pitching a Mali, banishing a Mali, bringing out a Mali, and then they're able to activate another Reasoning here. We will go 8 now because the big 6 that we're worried about is out of their deck. Could have also gone 4 here because they've only used up like 1 Stratos. So if they get out another Stratos, they can pop a thing with the Stratos as well. And they do unfortunately hit that Stratos, so we get a bit owned there. But they're going to think about exactly what to do. And they're going to decide to actually pop here. And I am thinking about this, and I'm like, okay, well, we could chain Scapegoat to this because Stratos is not target. So if its effect resolves, they get to pick a card and you can't chain it. So we could go for Scapegoat here. But I think if they've got Lightning Vortex, which I think is a fair possibility given they've not milled it yet, if they got Lightning Vortex, activating the Scapegoat now does nothing for us, right? And it just allows them to pop our ring or pop our anti-spell or something like that. So what I'd rather do here is actually wait on this and allow them to pop, and hopefully they hit the ring. If they hit the Scapegoat, that's too bad. But like, I feel like it is probably better just to save the Scapegoat for if they've got Vortex. So I do just let them do this. And maybe that was a mistake. They do hit the Scapegoat, but I do think it is ultimately the better thing to do. They had a Stratos here anyway, so they're able to pop the rest of our board, so it's kind of awkward. They crash into the Mobius with the Jinzo, then attack directly for 3,600. Actually, they tribute summoned out the Jinzo, so they shouldn't have been able to do this. So this was actually a missequencing on our part. I think either way, we were kind of in a bad spot here, because even if we ring one of their monsters, we're like still pretty far behind. And they didn't activate any other spells for the rest of the turn. For this turn, what they would have done, they would have summoned out Stratos, popped some stuff, and gotten a bit off the races there. But like, I don't know. It would have been slightly different here for sure. But I think we were still losing this one. Let's see, we would have been at like 1,400 more life points. We would have probably rung a Stratos as well. But like, that wouldn't have done anything really. So yeah, I think we would have still been losing this game here. But we should have kept better track of the normal summons there. That's definitely my mistake. But either way, I mean, we are able to bring out a Sidra, able to bring out a Kaiku as well. So we're able to at least alleviate some of the pressure here. We do banish 2 warriors, which I think is a mistake. Because I'm like, well, you know, if they do clear our Kaiku, then they can like Airblade them away. So it doesn't really matter there. But I think it does matter if they like top deck a Dim Fuse or something. But that was a mistake on my part. But either way, we got TT. So if they do Dim Fuse, we can like TT the board away. But they are able to graceful here with that Diamond Dude. And that's going to be pretty rough for us. They draw 3, pitch 2. They pitch a Gate and a Reasoning. They've got MST for our TT. And then they'll tribute out a Democ here. and that's not going to go well for us. So they're able to add back a dim fuse here, and they're actually not even going to use the dim fuse. They instead are going to go for a lightning vortex here that they had set. So they did have the vortex that turn, so I am glad that I didn't go for the goat there, because they would have been able to clear it anyway, so it didn't really matter. But yeah, it was definitely a rough one for us, and yeah, we unfortunately lost. And yes, there was the error earlier with them being able to normal summon the Stratos on the turn they normal summon Jinzo, but I think ultimately it would not have mattered here. So we're just going to set 3, pass back to them. I feel like this is a pretty good board, even though we didn't open Anti-Spell. Scapegoat can protect us a bit. Book of Moon can do some things as well. But yeah, I'm just going to L set pass. They go for a Reasoning here, and I decided to go for 4 since they've not used up any Stratuses or anything like that in the deck, and Stratus does turn on their board here. So I am going to do 4. If they get 8, that's really bad for us, but we can book down the Demok at least. So they do indeed hit a Diamond Dude there. They go for another Reasoning. We are going to call 4 again because we don't want them to hit a Stratos, and they hit a Mally. I mean, we're okay with that, honestly. Hitting a Mally is much better than them searching out a Mally and then pitching it to D-Draw. So they're just going to set 1 pass back to us. And I think we're in a pretty good spot overall. We're going to go for Grace. We'll just see if we can draw in anything else good. And we're also going to decide to pitch a Mirror Force and a Mobius. Seems like they probably don't have much back row there. And we don't have any traps for the Decree, really. We do have Call and Solemn, though. So that is something to keep in mind. But we'll attack over the Mally with the Sangan and then attack directly with the Kaiku. They do have the Ring for the Kaiku, so they're able to stop that. But we've got Call to bring it back in their standby phase next turn, so they can't go for a Mally play. So they're going to draw there, and then in standby phase, we are going to bring back the Kaiku with the Call of the Haunted there to prevent them from using the Mally preemptively and doing like Monster Gate plays or things like that. So I think this is the correct thing to do. They go for a Rhoda here, and they're going to search out a Stratos, and then they can summon out that Stratos, and we will Solemn that because we do not want them to get that effect off and turn on their deck. So we are going to Solemn that. We're in a pretty good spot here overall, and we draw Anti-Spell. That's the icing on the cake here. So we're just going to think about this a bit. We could tribute out the Cyber Dragon over the Sangan and get a search, but I don't really feel the need to. I feel like we can save Cyber Dragon for later, especially because we have this Scapegoat here to protect us if they make a huge play. So I feel like the Sidra should be fine. So we attack in for 28 here, and we will be able to banish things. We are going to banish the Mally and the Diamond Dude there. Yes, if they do have the Dim Fuse, that's pretty awkward for us, but they're down to 3,400 here, and I'd rather shut off their Airblade plays if they are able to get a Phoenix Blade in Grave and do things with that later after clearing the Kaiku. So we're going to set an Anti-Spell here, pass back to them. We activate Anti-Spell now. They set another, pass back to us. And we could go for lethal here by tripping over the Cyber Dragon, but I don't really feel like we need to. We're just going to attack in for 28 and banish that Stratos, I believe, as well. Because now they're out of Dim Fuse range, so they can't use that unless they summon out a Diamond Dude and mill a Dim Fuse, but that's not the most likely thing in the world. They're going to go for a D-Draw, pitching that Mally that they drew there, draw 2, but that's just going to be the end of the game because they can't banish the Mally and do anything else. So Kaiku showing its worth in this deck. We're going to go into game 3 and hope that we were able to take the match. It's been definitely a back and forth match for sure. A draw, a game that I'm pretty sure like we were going to lose either way, even if there wasn't an error in rules there. And then that last game, which we didn't draw Anti-Spell, we sure was able to put up a fight there. They go for Coffee, ripping that MST, and I know what that means. That means they got a Decree, so that is rough. That is really rough for us. We don't have a way to deal with Decree right now. The MST was our way to deal with Decree. We still have Breaker, we still have Heavy. We've got a couple options in the deck to deal with Decree, but they're not at hand right now. They're able to get off their Stratos play here, search out a Mally, and then they're just going to set 1 pass back to us. So I know that sets Decree. In case it isn't, I'll still set 3, pass back to them, but there's the Decree. And this is going to be a rough one for us. It's just going to be rough. They've got Stratos here. They're going to search out a Diamond Dude, and they're going to go for a Gate on that Stratos, and they're going to hit it. Okay, we're happy with them hitting a Mally. That's pretty good. So yeah, I mean, not the best hit for them off gate, but they don't really need it to be the best hit. We draw into Mobius. So if we draw into like a Sidra or something like that, we can bring out the Mobius, pop the Decree, and then we're back in business. But as of now, looks like that Mobius is probably not hitting the field. So they're going to bring out a Diamond Dude and mill a Mally. I mean, that's very good for them because now they won't be drawing that next turn. But also good for us because they don't get a spell there. We draw into Anti-Spell, which would have been good except for that Decree. and they're going to pass back to us. So we're destroying all traps, but to be fair, our deck is made up of mostly traps. So if they do have Decree here, then that's pretty bad for us. And I feel like Airblade can probably side Decree pretty well. They go for a D-draw, pitching a Mally, go for the Stratos, search out a Diamond Dude, banish for another Mally, and that will be, I think, exact lethal. That's 16, 3,000. Yeah, that's exact lethal there. But on top of it, they're just going to go for a Monster Gate. Might as well. And they had a Jinzo as well. So even if we cleared the Decree, we wouldn't necessarily have the best out to deal with the Jinzo. And that's just going to be the end of the game. So rough stuff for the anti-meta deck. I mean, it did put up a good fight. It did win a game. And it did show how powerful that if you just activate anti-spell game 1, the deck does get stymied a bit. But the downside to this is that anti-spell only lasts a turn. And this deck can't kill Airblade fast enough to make it so that, like, Airblade can't win. Because Airblade does have many outs to anti-spell. If they're able to set up some Stratos plays, then they're able to pop anti-spell with that. Of course, we got Solemn to deal with Stratos, but you won't always have the Solemn plus the anti-spell. And even if you do have it, like the game that I showed off at the very beginning here, doesn't necessarily mean that you'll win. So I do think that this deck is a neat idea and could be refined further with even more things to hit Airblade. But I think overall, the fact that decks like this cannot move as fast as Airblade can means that they'll always be struggling against Airblade. And Airblade can also side in Decree, which is also really bad for this deck. Now, as a note, I think something that could be done in the future is that Airblade itself could play anti-spell in the side deck. Because if you do your Airblade plays turn 1, and then you set an anti-spell, flip up anti-spell, opponents shut off from doing their plays, and then on the following turn, if you've set your spells with that anti-spell, you can still go off. So I think anti-spell probably should be experimented with more in Airblade decks themselves, because that seems like a busted side deck plan. And I think overall, just the Airblade deck itself should be experimented with more. I think there's a lot you can do with this, different innovations you can make to the sideboard and just the main board as well in terms of teching it out. But I think overall, the fact that this anti-meta deck still did not manage to take a match off Airblade shows that while it is nice in theory and can potentially be like a tier 2 deck maybe, I think Airblade is just the undisputed tier 0 in this format and is the main thing if you do play this format competitively, which, like, I don't know if there is going to be a competitive scene for this, but if there ever is, I think that the Airblade deck itself is just the undisputed king of it. But what do you think about this deck? Do you think that maybe if I had done different anti-meta techs, this would have turned out better for the anti-meta deck? Or do you think that Airblade is just too powerful and that even with a deck like this, with all the stars aligning, this deck just cannot compete against Airblade? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, subscribe to the channel to be notified when I release my later videos and when I go live for my local streams and things like that. If you want to play games in Airblade or in any other format that I've featured on the channel, head on over to the YGO from Zero Discord server, linked in the description down below. We hold monthly tournaments in a variety of the formats that I've covered here, as well as weekly locals, as I mentioned. If you want to support me directly, I have a Patreon linked in the description as well. And big shout outs to my patrons, GMYFest, Rincerin, Pork Chop Coon, Bren Donker, Tyler Compton, Dump Truck, and Scout Zero. It means a lot that you all support me this way and encourage me to make more videos like this in the future. I hope that you enjoyed this video as always, and until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.